Zombie fungi, hidden German bases, and even a soldier who stayed in the shadows for 30 years are only some of our jungle's greatest secrets known to man. UFO sightings happening in the Amazon rainforest. You heard that right, especially in 2014, where the indigenous people who inhabit the area had to reach out for help because they were so spooked. On July 24th, 2014, people reported that one of these saucers had come down into the village and started throwing light beams around. They reached out to the National Indigenous Foundation, who then went and got the federal police involved as well. Then, on July 31st, a terrifying letter was sent out by one of the leaders from the village it was happening in. It reads, "It is a sphere about 4 meters in diameter, which sends out beams of light, usually blue in color. Villagers tried to photograph and film the object, but they were unsuccessful, as when it was close to the ground, the machines simply did not work. Photographic images were taken only when the object was far away. One light that affected a woman, causing a terrible loss. All affected people, 3 in total, are currently ill with a headache and sensory imbalance. One of them feels her body in shock from the event. The community is preparing a detailed report with photographs and better information to present to FNAI. In any case, I ask FNAI to intervene, together with the federal police and the army, to take an observational measure to identify the object, since the community is in a state of insecurity. These instances would go on towards the end of 2016, when they suddenly stopped out of nowhere. People still have no idea what these things were or where they came from. Could you imagine finding an entire whale in the jungle? A humpback whale, measuring 26 feet long and 19 feet wide, was discovered in the Amazon jungle back in 2019. Scientists haven't the slightest idea as to how it got there, but there are some theories. One theory suggests that the whale had already passed on before its body was swept into the mangrove from strong tides. Renetta Imin, a marine specialist, stated that they were guessing that the creature was floating close to the shore, and the tide, which has been pretty considerable over the past few days, picked it up and threw it inland, into the mangrove. Another theory comes from the idea that the marine animal possibly ingested too much plastic in the water. The weird thing about it though was, how did it travel so far from its natural habitat in the winter season? And where was its mother? Because the remains were already picked away by scavengers, it was hard to tell in the moment how it actually passed on. The researchers instead collected samples of what they could that wasn't already decaying, and will hopefully have an answer for this bizarre mystery. The terrifying zombie fungus, the same one that inspired the game The Last of Us. Thankfully though, this fungi likes to target ants and not people. It literally hijacks the ant's brain and forces them to find a location where they can devour its prey in peace and grow spores for even more fungi. This isn't the first type of plant that likes to take on a host. In fact, there are at least 35 fungi in Ophiocordyceps family that will mind control the prey, that they know of scientifically, because they also speculate it can actually be around 600 of these parasitic fungi. Carissa de Becker, who is an assistant professor in biology, reassures us that these are super species specific. She states, they have very refined machinery to interact with their host and do these really interesting things like changing behavior, but they can't even jump from one species to the next. There are also scientists who work so closely with these fungi, where they inhale their spores on a daily basis and are still walking around like normal. However, due to the planet's climate becoming much hotter, their optimal growth temperatures may also grow with this, and only then will it cause some worries and their interactions towards human. Pink water. It sounds completely mythical, right? But it's very much real. A bright bubblegum pink lake was found off the southern coast of Western Australia. They dubbed it Lake Hillier, and was discovered back in 1802 by British explorer Matthew Flinders. In 2015, however, scientists wanted to see why it gives off such a pretty color. Originally, it was speculated that it was because of high salt content or from microalgae. They wanted to be sure though, and that itch couldn't leave them. A group named Extreme Microbiome Project, or XMP for short, took on the challenge and performed a DNA analysis based on all the water samples they collected. In the end, they were somewhat right in their hypothesis, because they found 10 species of salt-loving bacteria and Dunaliella algae that have a wonderful pink or red color to them. But there was one specific species of bacterium known as Salinibacter ruber, which made up 33% of the lake's DNA. This was probably why it comes off as strawberry pink, and nothing really to do with microalgae. Fun fact, it is completely safe to swim in, but because it's so incredibly difficult to get to, and expensive might I add, you won't be seeing a lot of Instagram posts about it. The earthen rings found in the Amazon rainforest are one of the jungle's greatest mysteries. Some scientists are even saying that these rings are older than the rainforest itself, and the area alone is speculated to be almost 10 million years old. So what the heck are these? There are several of these strange ring formations all across the land, and our usual speculations were that they were used for perhaps self-defense, drainage from floods, or for specific ceremonies, wink wink. This brought up another burning question, however. How much land reformation prehistoric people did in comparison to Europeans when they were discovering the world? Postdoctoral researcher John Francis Carson stated, "People have been affecting the global climate system through the land use for not just the past 200 to 300 years, but for thousands of years. Previous thoughts were that the Amazon was the way that it was for thousands of years, but because of these strange circles and discoveries of ancient pollen and charcoal from past fires being found, it might have actually been a drier climate." With this new research being done, they speculated that before the rainforest looked more similar to the savannas of Africa. As more participation increased, then the Amazon started to become what it is today. And if the earthen rings were used for drainage, we might have our answer. Carson would go on to say, "It kind of makes sense. It's easier to stomp on a sapling than it is to cut down a big Amazonian tree with a stone axe." Onada, a Japanese man who hid for 30 years in a Philippine jungle. Despite its huge controversy with his life story becoming a documentary, you cannot deny that this story of human resilience is fascinating. Onada was originally sent to take control over an airfield in Lubang, but this mission had failed, and he and a couple of his comrades retreated into the jungle, where they would remain there for decades. Any news about the war ending or Japan surrendering were all dubbed as fake or propaganda to try and lure them out from the jungle. Even when there were other Japanese soldiers coming to find them, they thought they were working against their will for the enemy. The fact that they survived that long on a diet of banana skins, coconuts, stolen rice, and anything else that was deemed edible and not riddled with poison was incredible. The director of the film and other people who know about the story aren't blind to the fact that Onada still has a lot of problems under his belt with certain actions he's committed, but rather the director still wanted to showcase a film about someone who was completely imprisoned in their own mind with what they were fed by people of higher authority. Are you brave enough to stay in a jungle for 30 years? Let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next video.